Imagine being accused of something unthinkable, your life turned upside down in a single moment. This is the story of Marcus Williams, a single black dad whose act of kindness became a trap set by his own boss. Stay tuned to Real Stories Diary, because you won't believe what happens next. Single black dad takes his drunk boss home after the company party. When she wakes up, Victoria Reynolds' cold voice cuts through the silence of the office. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? She holds her cell phone, a compromising photo on the screen. A man like you in my house, taking advantage of me when I was vulnerable. 34-year-old Marcus Williams remains seated calmly at the executive desk, his eyes fixed on her without showing surprise. A single father of an 8-year-old girl, he's been a senior analyst at the company for 5 years. Always impeccable in his reports, respectful to everyone. He never imagined a gesture of kindness would turn into an accusation that could destroy his life. Ms. Reynolds, you were extremely drunk last night. I just took you home safely, as any decent person would do. Victoria laughs dismissively, her blue eyes flashing with calculated coldness. Oh, how convenient. The helpful employee offers to drive his drunk boss home. And then, well, we all know what men like you do when you think no one's watching. The insinuation is clear, poisonous. Marcus feels his blood boil but keeps his composure. He's noticed small signs of prejudice from Victoria over the years, subtle comments about how lucky he was to work at such a prestigious firm, condescending looks when he spoke in meetings, the way she always double-checked his work while approving mediocre reports from white colleagues without question. I'm sure there's a misunderstanding here, Marcus says, his voice controlled, masking the storm inside. There's no misunderstanding. You invaded my privacy, embarrassed me, and now you're going to pay for it. Victoria leans forward. I'm considering reporting this as sexual harassment. It's your word against mine, Marcus. Who do you think they'll believe? What Victoria doesn't know is that Marcus has a secret weapon that could turn the tables completely. Don't miss the shocking twist coming up on Real Stories Diary. The silence hangs in the air like a tangible threat. Marcus watches the face of the woman who controls his professional destiny, noticing how she savors every word, every moment of power over him. She has no idea that he recorded every second of the previous night, from the moment he found her crying in the company bathroom to when he dropped her off at home, taking care to document every respectful gesture. What if I told you I have proof that nothing inappropriate happened? Marcus asks softly. Victoria laughs. Proof? What kind of proof could a man in your position have against someone like me? Marcus just smiles, a smile that contains years of patience, strategy, and an intelligence Victoria completely underestimated. He knew this moment would come. People like her always reveal their true nature when they feel in control. While Victoria talks about consequences and resignations, Marcus thinks about his daughter waiting at home, the injustice she faces every day, and the plan he began forming long before this conversation. If this story of prejudice disguised as power resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to Real Stories Diary, because what Victoria didn't know was that Marcus had spent years documenting every comment, every dismissive look, every microaggression. Now, he finally had the perfect trigger to expose the true face of the company's most respected executive. Victoria wastes no time spreading her version of the facts. The following Monday, Marcus arrives at the office to find strange looks, muffled whispers, and a frosty atmosphere that wasn't there the previous Friday. She planted poisonous seeds of mistrust with surgical precision. Marcus, we need to talk, says Jennifer from Human Resources, appearing in his cubicle before he even turns on his computer. There has been a formal complaint against you. As he walks down the hallway, Marcus notices colleagues averting their gaze, as if he were carrying a contagious disease. Victoria chose her words carefully, never direct accusations that could be refuted, but insinuations serious enough to tarnish his reputation irreversibly. In the HR office, he finds Victoria sitting like a queen on her throne, flanked by 2 company lawyers. Her smile is predatory, full of the confidence of someone who's never lost a corporate battle. Mr. Williams, Jennifer begins uncomfortably, Ms. Reynolds alleges you behaved inappropriately when you drove her home after the company party. She has compromising photos. What photos? Marcus interrupts calmly. Victoria slides her phone across the table, showing a picture of her lying in her own bed, slightly disheveled. You put me in this vulnerable position, Marcus. A man alone with a defenseless woman. Marcus looks at the photo with clinical interest. Interesting. And who took this picture? I did, when I woke up and realized what had happened, Victoria replies quickly. Ah, Marcus says, making a mental note. First documented lie. What Victoria didn't know was that Marcus grew up in the welfare system after his mother died when he was 12. 5 years in dysfunctional foster homes taught him to document everything, distrust authority, and always have an escape plan. Later, serving 4 years in the army before using his benefits to pay for college, he learned strategy, patience, and the importance of knowing his enemy thoroughly before attacking. Now, as a single father to Maya, a brilliant 8-year-old girl who was his reason for living, Marcus perfected the art of anticipating problems and protecting himself against them, especially in corporate environments where black men were often the first to be sacrificed when something went wrong. Mr. Williams, Jennifer continues, do you understand the seriousness of this situation? We're talking about a possible suspension without pay while we investigate. Sure, Marcus replies. And I suppose Ms. Reynolds' word is considered more reliable than mine. Victoria leans forward, her eyes sparkling with malice. Marcus, you're a good employee. You always have been. But men in your situation sometimes get confused about appropriate boundaries when they're around successful women. It's understandable, really. The condescension in her voice is like a slap. Marcus feels that familiar sensation, the same one he felt when social workers talked about people like him, when senior officers in the army questioned his leadership abilities, when college professors expressed surprise at his high grades. Situation, she says softly, you know, single father, coming from where you come from, working here at our goodwill. Sometimes the lines get blurred when there are significant differences in status. The silence in the room was deafening. Jennifer looks uncomfortable, but the lawyers remain impassive. Victoria, however, was clearly relishing every word, every moment of humiliation she believes she is inflicting. Marcus thinks of Maya, who that morning asked why he looked worried. Daddy, are you okay? You always say good people win in the end. He had smiled and promised that he was, that good people always find a way. Ms. Reynolds, Marcus says finally, may I ask a question? On the night of the party, you mentioned something about your former assistant, Sarah Chun. You said she had tried to play the race card when she was fired for. Victoria stiffens slightly. That's right, that's not relevant to this discussion. Oh, sure, but I think it's important, Marcus continues. Because Sarah came to me last week about it. She's suing the company for racial discrimination. Apparently, she's got some very interesting recordings of conversations she had with you. Victoria's face loses some of its color, but she recovers quickly. Sarah's a disgruntled employee making up stories. No one will believe her. Marcus smiles again. That's because, you may be right about that, Ms. Reynolds. After all, who would believe the word of an Asian woman against a respected white woman like you? The irony does not go unnoticed. Victoria realized too late that she had fallen into a verbal trap, using the exact same argument that was now being turned against her. What are you implying? Jennifer asks. Marcus rose calmly. I'm not implying anything. I'm just observing that it's interesting how some certain people assume that their word is worth more than others based on, characteristics that shouldn't matter in a professional environment. As he left the room, Marcus heard Victoria whispering furiously with the lawyers. She had no idea that he had spent the last 2 years meticulously documenting every questionable comment, every microaggression, every discriminatory decision she thought was too subtle to be noticed. Every condescending word she had just spoken had been recorded by the discreet app on his phone. Every expression of superiority had been captured. Every implicit admission of bias was now digitally preserved. What Victoria also didn't know was that Marcus wasn't just any senior analyst. He had a master's degree in information systems and had built a network of contacts that included investigative journalists, civil rights lawyers, and corporate activists who lived to expose executives like her. But above all, Victoria had made the fatal mistake of threatening not only his job, but his ability to support Maya. And when you threaten the daughter of a man who has already lost everything once and rebuilt himself from scratch, you awaken a force that cannot be contained or controlled. That afternoon, while Victoria celebrates with her lawyers what she believed to be an easy victory, Marcus is at home helping Mia with her math homework, carefully planning every move in a game she didn't even know she had lost the moment she completely underestimated the intelligence and preparedness of the man she was trying to destroy. Victoria wastes no time consolidating her victory. On Tuesday, Marcus was officially suspended without pay for inappropriate conduct under investigation. On Wednesday, she circulates a confidential memo to other executives about keeping an eye on employees who may exhibit questionable behavior. On Thursday, Marcus receives a formal letter from the company requesting that he no longer enter the building until further notice. What Victoria didn't know was that Marcus had spent the last 3 days not wallowing, but executing the first phase of a plan he had been developing for months. His first phone call wasn't to a run-of-the-mill labor lawyer, but to Amanda Rodriguez, a racial discrimination attorney who had built her career destroying executives who thought they were above the law. Marcus Williams, Amanda's voice sounded interested when he identified himself. "Sarah Chin told me about you. She said you might have something valuable information about certain practices at your company." "I have more than information, Ms. Rodriguez. I have evidence." During their meeting in Amanda's office, Marcus opens his laptop, showing her meticulously organized files. Detailed spreadsheets showed how Black and Latino employees were systematically given lower performance reviews, passed over for promotions, and had their work questioned far more often than their white colleagues who performed worse. "Impressive," Amanda murmurs, examining the data. "How long did it take you to compile all this?" 2.5 years since I noticed the pattern." Marcus clicked on another folder. But that's not even he's not the best part. What appeared on the screen made Amanda whistle softly. They were screenshots of private WhatsApp conversations between executives, internal emails with racist comments disguised as a cultural concerns display, and most devastating of all, a 23-minute audio recording from an executive meeting where Victoria and others openly discussed how to manage diversity without compromising standards. "How did you get access to this?" Amanda asks, clearly impressed. Marcus smiles for the first time in days. "Let's just say that when you work in IT for 5 years before becoming an analyst, you learn a few useful things about corporate systems. And when you're consistently excluded from important meetings, you find other ways to stay informed." Meanwhile, Victoria was in her office celebrating with phone calls to other female executives, bragging about how she had dealt with a problem employee before he became a bigger liability for the company. She had no idea that every word was being documented by the monitoring system Marcus had discreetly installed months earlier. "The problem with people like him," Victoria says on the phone to Margaret Thompson, director of another branch, "is that they don't understand appropriate boundaries. They grow up thinking they deserve the same treatment as people who have actually built something in life." On the other end of the line, Margaret laughs. "At least you took care of it before he tried to play the race card. Those cases can drag on for years." "Exactly," Victoria says. "That's why I acted quickly. A single black man against a respected white woman. The courts may be more sensitive these days, but the reality is that credibility still matters." Marcus listens every word through the system he had set up. Each comment automatically transcribed and marked with a date and time. Victoria was digging her own grave and didn't even realize it. That afternoon, Amanda calls with news. "Marcus, I've got something interesting. The Justice Department is investigating discriminatory practices at large companies. Your company is on the list of companies under preliminary scrutiny. That means your evidence won't just be used to help in a labor lawsuit. It could be the missing piece in a much larger federal investigation." As he talks to Amanda, Marcus glances out the window of his living room where Maya is doing her homework at the kitchen table. She had asked why Daddy was home during the week, and he had explained that he was working out some problems at work. "Will everything be okay, Daddy?" she had asked with that frightening insight children sometimes have. "Yes, it will, sweetheart," he replied. Sometimes people think they can be mean to other people without consequences. But the truth always comes out in the end. Maya had smiled and returned to her math problems, confident in her father's that. That confidence was what fueled Marcus's fierce determination. It wasn't about him. It was about creating above all for that world where his daughter would never have to accept being treated as second-class citizen. Amanda, Marcus says, returning to his phone. There's one more thing I need to show you. What? The recording of my conversation with Victoria from yesterday. Her whole performance about men like me and status differences in status. It's all there. It's documented, including the part where she admits she planned this situation from the beginning. Amanda was silent for a moment. That's because, Marcus, you realize what? Marcus, do you understand what this means? Yes, he replied. It means she's not just committing discrimination. She's orchestrating a conspiracy to harm an employee based on racial prejudice. And she was stupid enough to admit it, Amanda adds. Exactly. And that exactly turns a routine that employment case into a federal criminal charge. That night, while Marcus is helping Maya with her history homework on civil rights, she asks a question that makes him stop breathing for a moment. Dad, why do some people think they're better than others just because they're different of the color of their skin? Marcus chooses his words carefully. Sometimes, he says, sometimes, Maya, people who, thinking they've never had to fight for anything, think that their easy life means because they're special. They forget that we're all equal. And what do we do when we meet people like that? Marcus smiles, thinking of that moment with Victoria about celebrating. We show them they're right, wrong, he says, with intelligence, with evidence, and always by doing the right thing. What Victoria didn't know was that Marcus had spent years building this network of contacts that included investigative journalists, civil rights activists, and even other employees from companies that were similar companies who had experienced discrimination. Marcus's suspension had freed up time to activate this dormant network in a way he could have done while working full-time. On Friday, while Victoria's having lunch at the most expensive restaurant in town, with Margaret Thompson about her efficient management of human problematic resources, Marcus is laughing in a video conference with representatives from the Department of Justice, presenting evidence that would turn Victoria's life into a legal nightmare from which she would never wake up from. For a moment, when Marcus turns off his computer after the meeting, he allows himself a smile of satisfaction, not a smile of revenge, but the smile of a man who had finally found the perfect moment to let justice prevail. A man who had learned that patience and preparation were worth more than 1,000 angry words, and that sometimes the best response to injustice is to give the unjust enough rope to hang themselves. Monday begins normally for Victoria: premium coffee, executive meeting at 9, lunch with investors at noon. She's reviewing presentations when Jennifer from HR appears at her door with an expression Victoria's never seen before, a mixture of panic and disbelief. Victoria, we have a problem. A very serious problem. What now? Did Marcus hire some cheap lawyer trying to stir up trouble? Jennifer closes the door and approaches the desk. No. The FBI is in the building. They want to talk to you about systematic discriminatory practices at the company. Victoria's blood runs cold. What are you talking about? There's a federal investigation underway. Apparently, someone's provided extensive evidence that's because of racial discrimination at the company, recorded conversations, internal emails, manipulated HR data. Jennifer pauses, watching the color drain from Victoria's that. His name is at the center of it all. At that moment, the door opens, and 2 federal agents enter, followed by the company's CEO, Mr. Thompson Davidson, who looks like he's aged 10 years since the previous morning. Ms. Reynolds, Jennifer says, the lead agent, showing her his badge, I'm Special Agent Carter from the FBI Department of Justice. We're here to ask you some questions about your management practices at the company. Victoria tries to maintain composure, but her hands are shaking slightly. Of course, sure. But I don't understand why that would be necessary. It's starting here, with the agent playing an interview audio on his recording tablet on his tablet. This is Victoria's voice, echoes clearly right through the room. This is about the problem with people like him, is that they don't understand appropriate boundaries. They grow up thinking they deserve the right same treatment as people who have actually built something in life. Victoria's face drains completely of that. This is that was taken out of context. I was talking about. And that? Another clip begins to play, a single black man against a respected white woman. The courts may be more sensitive these days, but the reality is that credibility still matters. Mr. Davidson stands up abruptly. Victoria, for God's sake, tell me you didn't say that. But the worst was yet to come. The agent slides a stack of documents across the table. These are transcripts of your phone conversations from the last 6 months, all legally obtained through a court order based on a detailed complaint of systematic discriminatory practices. Victoria flips through the papers with growing horror. Every racist comment, every discriminatory decision, every conversation where she revealed her true prejudice was right there, documented with date, time, and context. Who provided who? Mr. Marcus Williams, the agent replies, along with evidence that you orchestrated a false accusation against him based solely on racial prejudice. The agent shows her more documents, including security system records showing that you yourself took that photo at your home 3 hours after Marcus left you safely at home. The revelation hits Victoria like a bolt of lightning. Marcus had everything, every move, every conversation in every moment of that night, the security cameras in her building that clearly showed that the timestamp of the photos she used as evidence. In addition to that, the agent continues, we have more records that you illegally accessed the HR system to alter performance reviews of Black and Latino employees, lowering their scores to justify denying them promotions. Mr. Davidson stands up, his voice shaking with anger, that's enough. Victoria, you've compromised everything, the company, our government's contracts, our reputation. You've ruined everything. I can explain it, she tries to say. There's no explanation, Donovan the CEO interrupts. The CEO turns back to the agents, she's done. She's fired immediately. Effective immediately. The company will cooperate fully with the investigation.